States often serve as the laboratories for federal issues. We've seen that play out actually in the recent health reform bill because Massachusetts was the laboratory. They've been at this process for about 4 or 5 years, and there were a number of things like the health insurance exchanges that played out in Massachusetts, and the federal government capitalized on that. In the Northern Plains, we often refer to this part of the country as the frontier. And so we have a lot of rural providers in this part of the United States. And what happens to rural providers is they're somewhat isolated, and they also operate on very thin margins. The other thing is that they often treat an older, sicker population, but yet it's the only point of access within a large geographic span. And so we really have to be cautious when we put in place health reform policies that would negatively affect the rural communities. I think the big challenge is how complicated it can all be, although there are some conveniences too, because oftentimes when you see health policy crop up in one state, you'll likely see it in the next state that's adjacent to that state during the next legislative session. So likely when you've seen something new, you're going to see it again, and so it does prepare you to deal with it in the other states. And not only that, you almost become an expert. The best way is to keep it in the perspective of 3 buckets. The first bucket is 2010 through about 2013. And during that period of time, the federal government will be ramping up by writing all the rules and regulations, which will be hundreds of thousands of pages of rules and regulations for providers and others to follow. The second bucket is what I call the Big Bang, which is where market expansion will occur. And in 2014, millions of Americans will come onto the insured rolls. And during that time, all of the exchanges and everything needs to be in place. And then the third bucket would be after 2017, which is most often going to be a restructuring period. And then during that period, you'll likely see the sequel to all of this, and it'll be health reform too. We are probably one of the more regulated industries in America. And these policies affect all of our providers, whether it be a hospital, whether it be physicians, long-term care. And so we need to be very focused on those types of policies to make sure that they don't get in the way of providing solid patient care.